Thank you, Silvia, for being here. It is a great pleasure for us to have you. What do you think about the event? Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure for me to be with you, thanks to the General Director of INCIBE and her whole team. This is a spectacular event. All 3 days, both 15 INCIBE and mujeresciber. I think we all were eager to have a face-to-face event again, so congratulations. I think the event has been a great success. Well, thank you. And I will extend your gratitude and recognition to the General Director of INCIBE and her whole team for having prepared and put together this event. Well, I was reading a little bit in preparation of this interview. I can see that your career is rather interesting. Now you are the General Director of this foundation. How did you get here? Well, I studied journalism at Universidad Complutense in Madrid and started working at Tiempo magazine in 2001. I started as an intern, and one of the areas that nobody would cover was information about defense. So I spoke to the director of the magazine, and they gave me the opportunity. So I was covering defense information until 2006, for around 6-7 years maybe, for Tiempo magazine. This was an interesting time for me, a very good experience. I had no relationship whatsoever before then to the world of defense. I had the opportunity to work with the troops and to visit Iran, Lebanon, Kosovo, and then for different reasons, due to the organization of the magazine itself, I was moved to parliamentary information, covering news in this area, and I left or put aside. Well, I am also a graduate of high studies, or studies of the high defense at national level, but I was not working on a daily basis with defense. I then moved on to the Ministry of Economy for another 5 years, and then I moved to Red.es for another handful of years, where you can say that I discovered technology, really. I was always attracted to technology, but that gave me hands-on, day-to-day experience. Red.es, I spent another 5 years as a Chief of Institutional Relationships. It was a very good and interesting experience indeed. And from then, I went to the foundation of Spanish Railways. There was an opportunity to develop all things digital for communication in the organization, and this was until the month of September, where I was called by Círculo de Tecnologías para la Defensa y la Seguridad. And for me, receiving that call, which I will always be grateful for, it was a very nice experience, because some years before I had done a master's in digitalization, and one of the things they said to me when they saw my profile, my curriculum, they said, what is defense related? How is defense related to everything that you've done? Because technology was related to Red.es, to Ferrocarriles Foundation, but it is true that my onset, where I started my professional career with defense, had nothing to do, really. So I said, yes, there is a great disconnection, if you like. So I wondered, when I was called from Fundación Círculo for defense, I was wondering, isn't it funny that at the end of the day, you may end up doing the same thing that you were doing 20-odd years ago? And I had never thought that at the end of the day, I would be offered working for defense and at technology, and to have the opportunity to join together these two fields, which might seem so far away, by doing this job, working for defense and for technology. Well, now defense and technology are very much together, and they do come hand in hand, since for a number of years we have the joint command, and we know that the wars now happen in the cyberspace. You have a very extensive career, but talking about your current job, you never know what's going to come next. or where you're going to connect or reconnect. But what do you do at the Foundation? Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do there and what activities you carry out? Well, the Foundation has more than 25 years history. Before it was known as Círculo de Electrónica Militar, Military Electronic Circle. It is a meeting point. I think it's one of the pioneering such organizations in Spain. What it does is it brings together the academia, people who are preparing for a technological career, with the defense and the technology industries. So it is a meeting point for debate and to promote this industrial culture around defense, and which aims, as we said earlier, to join those points and avoid disconnections. So this foundation, I've been there not for very long, not even a month ago I started. The general director, who I took over from, she retired just a few weeks ago, and when she interviewed me, she said, well, look, Silvia, the general directors of Fundación Círculo have always been women. And I think it was a kind of a gift that was given to me, because for the last 25 years, the general directorship has always been in the hands of women, and these are very male roles. And I think that was a beacon for a new way or new path that would open up, and I am sure, and I look forward to do my little bit. I am sure you will do your bit, of course, yes, and you will give them a lot. Due to this sort of interviews, which have an inspirational nature, because you are the reference for these young girls and women who want to seek different alternatives for their career. How do you look at this from your standpoint? When you talk about your reference, what have your reference been? Do you think that it is necessary to have some reference in the same area where you develop your activity? What can you tell us? Well, first, I would like to thank all these wonderful women that I'm meeting here today. It is a great privilege to listen to them, and it is true that we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We have a lot of digital breaches or gaps that we need to cover, and there are so many people who are working behind the scenes without the rest of us knowing. Thanks to them, however, people like me can be where we are. I am an optimistic. I feel that sometimes when we talk about these gaps, we focus ourselves very much on the problems, on the issues, but however, I do think that we have come a long way and we have made great progress, and I can take this to both women and men. I've been lucky enough to meet women and men who have done a lot to make the role of women more visible and to open the way, give them the opportunity and contribute to their liking of technology and digitalization. And I also like to show and talk about the consequences of all this. Sometimes we focus on the techniques and the technology of it, and we miss the human factor. Obviously, there is the technology around it, but you can come to technology with a very different training and background. Different from technology. At the end of the day, technology is cross-sectional. And I believe that each of us, from their backgrounds, if you like technology, if it interests you, it is important to know that you can approach it and that you can contribute regardless of the training you've received. Obviously, you cannot forget about the figures with scientific and technological careers. I was reading the other day in order to prepare this interview, and I read the figures, and these are alarming indeed. Some years ago, mathematics had a rate of women that was a lot higher than that of today. So something must be happening for this to be true. And however, I believe we have to remain optimistic because we have come a long way. There are still very many inspiring women. It's happened to me working at INCIBE. When I met the different working teams in defense, I was lucky to meet a lot of technological women and even women leaders leading technology businesses. Yes, indeed. What you just said, I think, is the core point. Although this is a highly technical sphere, there are many areas of specialization and many different career possibilities which do not necessarily have to require a technical background in terms of training. Since this sector has grown a lot in recent years, there are many jobs and different positions that are required, and many people don't know this. We need professionals, not only for the technical aspects, but also in many other areas. And something else that happens today, and I would like to know your opinion, that is the fact that in the world of employment, you can have your base background, and then you may be changing your career and expanding your career. I am a hacker myself, and I do many other things. I am presenting now and interviewing you, imagine. So a hacker, for instance, is someone who has curiosity, is someone who's always asking questions and who wants to make process. And the most romantic perception of a hacker does not necessarily have to be related to technology. Of course, it has a technological element, but it can be applied to anything in life. So transforming lives. And I think all of you, all the women present here, representing your jobs and positions, you are in a way hackers, although you might not enter into different systems. Jamie, actually, who was here with us yesterday, he said, I no longer act as a hacker, only for the social part. So I do agree with you here. And I would like to ask you, what do you think about the initiatives such as this event? What other alternatives are there to help those young women come closer to our sector? Well, I think we live at a time where we are gaining awareness about the importance of initiatives such as INCIBE. By the way, I love the motto, take the control, so it is high time for us to take the reins and take control, and we can do it. I think this is fundamental. Visibility beyond what you do every day, beyond the actions, the public and private initiatives, anything that can be done is fundamental and is very much necessary. Although we have improved a lot, this is not enough, and the figures are there. I think it is also a daily attitude that we can all have in everything we do in life and in our job. Beyond what we can do with events such as this, such as the initiatives with Spanish girls, or with all the public policies that can be launched and developed in this regard. It is also about visualization and awareness raising. Yes, indeed. But do you think that, because at the end of the day, this is a perception which is totally personal. I said, well, I have a 9-year-old girl, and well, they are digital natives, technologies. I'm not quite sure that it is so attractive for those very, very young children. They might look at this as something very attractive, or they might be thinking about becoming a hacker, or, decrypting things or entering things. Do you think that there is a change in pattern, a change in trend, because of what is being done here? You have worked in communication, and I'm sure you will have a better viewpoint than I do. To what extent everything that we are doing can transform the minds of those little children that that are growing up right now? Well, I do hope that you are right. It is true, as we have heard in the previous session, children today are digital natives and they might have different perception about technology. It is true, however, and this is something that still happens at school, that it comes a time where young girls are no longer interested. They lose interest, and this is happening now. Although they might be very interested when they are 4 or 5, or they compete on the same grounds as their male counterparts. I think there was a study that said that in the workshops being done in class with boys and girls had to be separated, because if they did disjoint events, girls would not speak. They would remain silent. So what they did eventually was to to do workshops specifically for girls so that they could express themselves and talk about scientific vocation and technological aspects, and they had to devote these female-only workshops to them. If you have a 9-year-old girl at home, you might have a different perception thanks to the work you do with her. But we cannot deny that these are the figures and these are the facts. And I try to be positive, and I do think that things are changing, and I am sure that they will be even better in going down the line. And thanks to the people who are, and the women particularly, who are involved in making this change. It is true what you said when you referred to how a part of what happens in the digital society today is that we are witnessing new professions. So today we are here talking about cybersecurity. We talk about artificial intelligence, big data. There are new technical professions in the sector, but also the reference for the youngest generation. Whereas before they were footballers, maybe they are YouTubers now. And this affects both boys and girls. And so, in short, there are new communication models. And I'm asking because not so very long ago, platforms such as Twitch were totally unknown. And now YouTubers are moving to Twitch. So everything's moving very fast. So how do you think, or what can you think we can do in order to reflect all these new things happening so quickly and make them available to the young generation? Well, there is something we shouldn't deny. The digital world is not so different from the real world. It is a different format, but they overlap, don't they? Yes, exactly. And just as we pay attention or prepare ourselves to achieve given competencies, our children, they will have the same problems in the digital world as they will in the real world. So a possible approach would be not to deny that digitalization is no different from what happens in the real world or the real problems. What you said about the change, it is true. Life has a very fast pace, but this is the life we have to live. You have to react quickly. And in the secondary school I studied at, they said, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, but do make it quick. So the problem is not so much the mistake you make, but how you react to those. And it is true that technologies, we might not know what technologies will be present down the line in 10 years, say, but that capacity to adapt that we as humans have from day one is there. And I think there is an important element here. The Secretary of State mentioned this morning. This cannot be something separate. Technology has to be human, and it has to be controlled by humans. So we have to humanize technology. This is the message that I wanted to launch. And technology has to serve us as individuals, and it has to serve society, and it has to serve our values. And if it doesn't, then it is not technology, it's something else. You mentioned a word that is very important to me when it comes to choosing our profession, or even when it comes to behaving daily. That's the term of the value. Sometimes we seem to be losing our values as a society. We know that the professional world is not fair, just as life is not fair either. And many people have made it on their own grounds and after struggling and fighting a lot. And I would like you, with having a very extensive career, I would like you to give us some advice for those young girls who may be listening to you. Young girls, maybe not so young, but what would you tell us by way of advice? Well, I wouldn't dare give any advice, but at the end of the day, after listening to the talks today and the interviews, there are 3 words that come to mind: women helping women. At the end of the day, I think we shouldn't be afraid of whatever comes our way, the challenges that come up. We shouldn't think I cannot do this. You have to forget about stereotypes, and when we are asked or when we are offered something, or when you think, well, or you have an employment opportunity that you are considering, instead of asking yourself why or will I be capable, maybe you should change the question and ask why not. At the end of the day, what my career and professional experience helped me to do is to see that everything is interconnected and interrelated. It doesn't matter if you have 5 year experience in a given topic or issue. If you want to become a data analyst at some point, you can do it if you want. Nothing is impossible because of what you have done in the past or what you can or what you will do in the future. This is what my professional experience has taught me. I think it is not always easy to get where you want to be. Sometimes you are not lucky to have the people to lend a hand, but at the end of the day, what you can do is what you do, and if on top of that you are lucky to have a helping hand, well, then use it. I think there are many women helping other women. There are men also, obviously, but there are many women helping other women. I think, as we can see here, I think that is beautiful, that is positive. This is something that happened also before, but maybe it couldn't be told as openly as we can say now in 2021 and talking about initiatives such as this one. Yes, indeed. You talked about your career, about your experience, and there's something that comes back to mind, and that's your early job as a journalist. So tell us, why did you decide to study journalism? Was that your passion? No, not at all. In fact, well, I didn't know what to study at the time. I liked writing, I liked reading, but I didn't quite know whether I should study Spain or psychology or what I should study. And just as we spoke before about school, I was not that good at mathematics. When I studied secondary education in the old Spanish education system, I had a wonderful mathematics teacher, and I got the best results and marks with her. But I did not dare continue doing a scientific pursuing a scientific kind of career. So that's why I decided to study journalism, because at the end of the day you can learn about many things, and it opens up a door to give an answer to the curiosity that I felt. I chose journalism. Back then it was a 5-year course, and if I ever come back on this stage a few years down the line and you ask me how do I connect my German side, I did study German and I lived in Germany for 1 year. Is there anything else that we don't know about you? No, that's about it. I did, well, my 4th year in Germany with an Erasmus program, and it was a very good experience. But my German is something I haven't been able to connect it to in my professional career. Well, it may come. In any case, there are cases where, well, that's what it's all about. Do the thing that you really like, and that's the key to success. When you do certain things, it's because you're passionate about those things. And in that sense, there is a core issue. And that's the fact that in the world of technology, people find it difficult to communicate. There are people who cannot write. And this is something that I always valued. Because sometimes you think that the technical aspect is more complicated than the rest, but it is true that part of what we do, like being here today, there are many areas where knowledge cannot penetrate, and in this sense we talk about skills. Do you think that there are certain skills like writing, speaking in public, mathematics, as you mentioned? Do you think that there are certain skills that you are born with? Of course, well, there are, but do you think that you can develop everything through training? What's your opinion? Well, I think everything can be achieved. Everything can be achieved. I think that people are born with some special skills, but if you work hard and if you prepare yourself, you can do it. I firmly believe so. In the case of technology, in reality, and just by way of example, mobile phones. My mum is 80 now, and she can use a mobile phone perfectly. She has an analogic telephone. She's not very good with television, but she can use her mobile phone because it's so intuitive. And if technology has achieved something in this life, is to make our lives easier and to make it possible for an 80-year-old woman to listen to a WhatsApp audio or to send a video just at a click of a button. And that's a digital skills that she acquired, and she acquired this skill when she was 80. So I think everything can be acquired and learned, and that we can train and improve in those things that we like and that we are passionate about. And I very much invite everyone to do this. If you don't know the possibilities or you can't find your inspiration about what you can achieve with technologies, the National Observatory of Telecommunications and the Society of Information, that is dependent upon the Secretary of State for Digitalization, recently launched a book on women and professional and digital professions with real examples of women leading businesses. Just as I said, being a data analyst, for instance, and where they explained that if you are curious, if you are exhaustive, if you are quick thinking, for instance, they would tell you the type of career that would adapt to you. And this was related to personal skills rather than professional skills. Yes, today we are given an increasing importance to these so-called soft skills. We talk about these a lot. So you believe that everything can be trained, then, don't you? And then I will ask you many questions that was not written, as many others have asked you. But since you are a chief in communication and a master in communication, I'm sure you will not have problem in answering. You believe that everyone has a value, a different competence or a different value. Do you think that men and women are different in the professional sphere in terms of our abilities or skills? But do you mean genetically or culturally or how? Well, I don't know really. Well, I think that right now, and there are data supporting this, men and women are orientated towards one or other professions. And I wouldn't, well, I leave this to the expert. I am no expert in knowing what this difference comes from, but there is a difference and there is a gap. And this may come from culture, from education, from the environment that you are, that you grew up in, and many other things that I wouldn't actually dare say or pinpoint. The facts are there. However, that doesn't mean that there are differences from the moment we are born. Now, I was rather referring to how we behave in our jobs, for instance, and this is related to what we hear about the difficulties of women reaching certain positions and certain jobs. That's why I thought I would ask you whether you think that there is any sort of difference. Well, I do feel that there is a glass ceiling, in a sense. Well, you have a very intense career, and you actually became a general director of Fundación Círculo. So in that regard, we call you to continue to inspire women and to lead by example. I can think of many examples of inspirational women like you, because at the end of the day, there are many people doing many interesting things. I was very happy to be with you. I'm not sure whether you would like to leave us with a tip or something. You want to say something? Maybe some advice for the people who are listening and who can be thinking about pursuing a career just as positive as yours. Well, yes, no doubt. I think everybody that approaches technology will realize that it's a wonderful sector, and you can approach technology from any background. Someone might think, how am I going to become an expert in data analysis? Well, if you do like it, you may actually do it and you can achieve that goal. So the question, as we said, is not so much what about, but really why not? Thank you very much, Silvia, for being with us. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Yes, thank you. And we will be in touch. And I hope you can stay around. Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for Silvia.